All right, let me get your attention up here, please. So, I gave you a little handout. Go ahead and close up your Chromebooks here for just a little bit. You'll get back to them. It won't take that long. I want to review something. I assume you probably talked about this, but it's been a while. So, we're going to talk about how do we factor. We're going to continue talking about solving by factoring. But what do we do if the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1? That makes it a little tougher, right? Then we have to go to bottoms up, which is a technique that works in those situations. So you got the sheet. Let's just kind of go through the steps, for a few examples, and just put these in your notes, and you can refer back to these. I will upload this to the online notes today, so it will be available online also. But I think you maybe ought to get it in your notebook too. So let's just read through these steps here. What's the first thing we're going to try to do? We're going to try to factor out a greatest common factor. Can we?
No.
We can't. 3 goes into 3 and negative 30, but doesn't go into 43. So we're stuck with this one the way it is. Okay, so we've got 3x squared plus 43x minus 30. What's next? Okay, we got to find magic numbers, right? So step 2, in step 1, a lot of times we won't even be able to do anything, like we couldn't here. Step 2 is going to be we got to find magic numbers. So remember, we're always going to be starting off in the form, in standard form. Which is just ax squared plus bx plus c, right? So let's first identify what are the values of a, b, and c. 3. Okay, so a is 3, b is
43.
C is
Negative 30.
negative 30. All right, so to find magic numbers now, we got to find magic numbers. This time it's a little different. This time they're not just multiplying to negative 30 and adding to 43. They're multiplying to a times c, right? So what is a times c? A times c is what? Negative 90, yeah, okay. 3 times negative 30 is negative 90, so they have to multiply to negative 90, and they have to add to b, which is 43, okay? So multiply, add. So what can you tell me about the two numbers if they exist? If they multiply to a negative, what can you tell me? Thank you. What can you tell me? Okay, they're opposite signs, right? They're opposite signs because they multiply to a negative, and the positive one must be bigger, right? And the very next step is going to be, if you look down to step 3, once we find the magic numbers, what do? We're going to write them as what we call preliminary factors. They're going to change, but we're going to start off with just regular factors the way we always would, the way we did before, right? So I guess this is step 2, right? So step 3, if we can find the numbers, if they exist. If they don't, we can't factor it. But if they do, we're going to add our magic numbers into these preliminary factors just like normal. But now we got to find those numbers, right? So let's think about this in terms of maybe a factor tree. So we'll have numbers that multiply to negative 90 and add to 43, okay? So we know the positive one is going to be the bigger of the two. Let's just start by making a list of factors of negative 90 where the positive one is bigger. And let's start with the extremes. And I want you to see a pattern here because it's very helpful. So I'll start you off. We could do positive 90 times negative 1. Now what's that going to add to, those two? 89. Okay, what's the next one down? 45 and 2, right? What's that add to? 43. So we already got our winner here, right? But I want to keep going for a second, just to show you a pattern. It's really useful. What would the next one be? And it might be easier to think about it in terms of the small factor. Right? We got 1, 2, we try 3. Does 3 work?
Yeah.
It does. So 30 and negative 3 would add to 27. 4 doesn't go into 90, right? But 5 does, so we could do 5. 5 and what,
18.
18, okay? So those add up to what, 13? 6 would work, right, or negative 6, I should say. And what, 15?
Yeah.
So those add to 9. 7 doesn't, 8 doesn't, 9 does. And that'd be our last one, wouldn't it? Those add to 1. Okay, I want you to notice a pattern here. The more extreme the numbers are, the factors, the further they are apart, what do you notice about the sum of the two? So when I have really extreme numbers like 90 and negative 1, so the numbers are really far apart, that's a big number, that's a small number. The numbers are big, aren't they? The closer these two numbers get together in size, the smaller the sum is, right? Can you see how that would be helpful? If you were looking, like here we're looking for 43, so that's pretty far up the list. But if we were looking for a number like 1 or 9 or something, we'd know probably right away that we got to skip down a ways. Right? Wouldn't it maybe even have to make the whole list? We could just target the part of the list where we're going to get our answer if it exists. Okay? That make sense? Okay, so we found our magic numbers, 45 and negative 2. So those are our preliminary factors, right? What's the next step? Step 4 on the sheet. Thank you. What's the next step? Everybody look at your sheet. What's next? After the preliminary factors, what do we do? Divide by 3 in the case of the example on the sheet, but just in general, we're going to divide by A. Good. We're going to divide by A, the leading coefficient of our quadratic expressions. We're going to divide by A equals 3, right? We divide each of the magic numbers by that. So we'd end up with x plus 45 over 3 and x minus 2 over 3. Okay, now what? Simplify. Okay. So this one simplifies to what? 15. Okay, good. X plus 15. This one doesn't reduce anymore, right? So last step, if we're left with a fraction, we go bottoms up, which just means that whatever the denominator of the fraction is going to go up in front of x. It goes from the bottom of the fraction up in front of x, and we're done. So our final answer would just be x plus 15 times 3x minus 2. Okay, make sense? Okay, let's try another one. Actually, let's skip up just a little bit. How about, let's try that one. Okay, what am I going to try first? Greatest common factor. Can I find one? What can I factor out? 4, it looks like. Okay, so first things first. We can factor out a 4, and then I'm left behind with what? If I undistribute a 4, 4x squared. What about the next term? Last term? Okay, good. Everybody? Okay, so now what? Okay, we got to find magic numbers. So what's the product of A and C this time? And what are A, B, and C, I guess? Let me write those down first. What's A equal to? 4. Now we're ignoring, this guy's gone, right? We're done with him. He's out in front. He's going to stay there, but we're done with him. All we need to work on now is this other trinomial. Okay, so A is 4. What's B? C?
9.
Okay, so then we end up with A times C is what?
36.
Okay. What's B equal to? Is that going to work? Are there numbers that multiply to 36 and add to negative 5? So what's the result here? Can we factor this? No, there are no magic numbers. So our answer is, we're done. It's that. That's as much as we can factor it. Okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's try another one. One more. How about this one? What's our GCF this time? Okay, 2, but the greatest common factor always needs to have the sign of the leading term. So it's not 2, it's negative 2. Right, so we can undistribute a negative 2. So we get negative 2. Now what's going to be left over? Negative 2 times what is negative 8x squared? 4 x squared, right? Negative 2 times what is negative 138x? Positive, what is that? Half that, 69? Is that right? Yeah. 69x. What, and then negative 2 times what is negative 34? 17. Okay? Good. So now what's A? What's B? What's C? So A times C, 4 times 17 is what, 68? Is that right? Oh, is that right? 34, yeah. So, is this gonna work? Yeah, it does, that's right. Okay. And B equals 69, so what are numbers? Can we find magic numbers then for step 2? Can we find magic numbers that multiply to 68 and add to 69? 68 and 1, there you go. Okay, so step 2. Magic numbers, they have to multiply 68 and add to 69, right? That would be 68 times 1, right? So if we write our preliminary factors, now we have to keep that negative 2 out front. It's stuck there, right? But our preliminary factors from this part would be what? X plus 68, x plus 1, right? And what's next? Yeah, we got, well, not the negative 2. It's A, right? We're going to divide both of the magic numbers by A. Reduce, right? So we got, that's probably step 5, actually. Huh? X, 68 over 4, what is that? 17? Good. That one doesn't reduce? That one doesn't reduce, right? So what's going to be, what are we going to do here? 4x, go bottoms up, right? Okay. And then that would cancel there. So we end up with our final answer is negative 2 times x plus 17 times 4x plus 1. That'd be it. Okay. Think you got it?
Yeah.
All right. It's no big deal, right? Try it. All right. So there's another assignment up. Another assignment. You may use the rest of the period to work on that.